Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show. Hello everyone, I'm Vince Rocco in New York, so let's get right to what everyone is talking about today on the show. The leasing landscape in New York City is evolving fast, but many property managers and realtors are still using outdated systems that don't align with the expectation of today's tech-savvy renters. Modern renters demand speed, convenience, and 24/7 responsiveness, something traditional leasing offices struggle to deliver. That's where AI comes in, with tools that can automate lead follow-up, schedule tours, answer questions in real time, and personalize outreach. AI helps leasing teams operate more efficiently while offering better experiences for prospects. In a hyper-competitive market like New York City, where every inquiry counts, AI just isn't a luxury. It's becoming a necessity to stay ahead and lease smarter. And at the table with me today are Ryan Solinger from ApartmentList.com and Joseph Castillo from Compass. They join me now to discuss, but first, let me welcome my listeners and my viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate, so let's go behind the headlines and inside real estate, the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So today we're going to be talking about the leasing market, the rental market, a little bit about the sales market. There's a couple of things we want to chat about, and it's how we are automating or trying to automate searching for listings for renters. Artificial intelligence. We're going to talk a little bit about the FAIR Act that just went into practice on June 11th, I think, of this year. What it really means out there for realtors, what it means out there for landlords, and actually what it also means for tenants. So let's get right to it because we've got a lot of information here today. Joseph, let me start with you. So in your typical business, book of business every day, every week, every month, whatever, what is the typical leasing client who comes to you? What is their profile and what is it that they are looking for? Because as I said at the top of the show, and as we'll chat about throughout the show, New York is a very different place, from anywhere else in the world. People who live here, people who want to live here, people who want to rent here are different as well. Expectations are different. So tell us a little.
The rules are different as well.
Everything is
Anything
different.
goes.
So give me a little piece of what, the clientele profile is and actually what they're looking for. And actually, are they realistic in what they're looking for?
And what are they spending?
Well, let's talk about
the whole thing.
Yeah, let's talk about all of that. I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. I can't believe I'm here. I'm such a big fan. I listen to you every single week. So
thank you.
I'm very, very honored to be here. But what do my clients look like? I work with primarily two types of clients. I work with everyday New Yorkers and I work with transplants. I work with a lot of students who move to the city and then they dorm the first year and then the second year they're like, Mom and Dad, I want my own apartment. So I work with a lot of those. I have good connections at NYU and Parsons. Those clients tend to be a little bit more different than the everyday New Yorkers because they have very high expectations and they don't want to spend as much money because they're not familiar with the market.
Right.
So I find that I spend a lot of time just educating people. And I think that's part of the reason as to why my business is so solid because I make sure to take my time informing every single client about exactly what goes on in the rental market. And I find that when I adjust expectations and I hear them out and I tell them, look, you're not going to be able to find that for $3,500 a month, or you aren't going to be able to find that for $3,500 a month, but you're going to have to go up to the heights.
No doorman either.
No doorman. Everybody wants a doorman. Nobody wants to pay the doorman price.
I don't want a doorman anymore. I've said that on this show many times. I've been there, done that for 30 years. I could do without one, but I get it. Everybody wants a doorman, especially when they're first coming in.
I know. Well, and you don't want a doorman because they get to know your entire biz, and then you have to tip them off.
It's a bribery on the holidays.
Exactly.
It's always a bribery. But let me ask, so when you say rather, and to Ryan's point before, what are they actually paying? Because nobody wants to pay the exorbitant amounts of rental these days. But what are they actually paying, and what are they getting? These first-time renters.
I mean,
One
look,
bed, studios.
My budgets are all over the place. I mean, right now, I think took a look at the rental report for May. I think the average one bedroom right now it's about $4,900. I have clients that are willing to pay well above the $5,000. Those clients that are willing to pay well above the $5,000 average, they want amenities. They want the doorman. They want the gym. They want the washer and dryer and unit. That's a huge, huge thing.
I know everybody wants that. Me too.
And but then it changed, didn't it? It didn't used to always be that way.
No. But it's become that very much so.
I mean, and rightfully so. It's got
even on the sales side, by the way.
Oh, 100%. If the building does not allow for buyers to install washers and dryers, it's a tougher sell. 100%. People want to wash their own laundry in their own apartment. I get it. I do laundry every single day. I don't want anybody to look at what I'm washing or drying.
I totally agree with that. But, in this town, because we have a lot of older buildings, the older technology, the older buildings are not updated for the new technology. And I live in a pre-war from 1929.
Yeah.
We are not allowed to install washer dryer. I, for the same reason, would love to do my own laundry. But Ryan, let me ask you something. So why, you were an agent for many years. Why has, the New York City rental market remained so expensive, so competitive, more than any other city in the world? I mean, Joseph touched on it a little bit, but what about New York City? And we talked about this before the show started. What about New York City is so intriguing that people are willing to pay $4,900, $5,000, et cetera, for a one-bedroom in New York where, you can rent a whole house in the burbs for that kind of money?
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me, Vince. I'm happy
My
to be
pleasure.
here again, especially in a new role and a new capacity. So I appreciate
We're going to get to that in a sec.
giving me a soapbox to stand on and come here and connect, learn, and listen. But I think the reason New York remains so robust is because it's a cultural icon. This is home to the capital, the jobs, the culture.
I mean, it's the best city in the world.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't New York remain so hot?
Where else would you move to? I mean, what other city would you move to? Maybe London, maybe Tokyo. I don't know. What offers something comparable to this? And it's really hard to put your finger on it. But I think that the median rents at $4,700 a month right now, which is what I looked up, demonstrates the popularity that endures here in spite of the increased costs. So you still have record low vacancies at the moment. Why is that when it's more expensive than ever? Rents went up almost 15% after the 2019 laws passed, which hindered the ability for owners and operators to lease the way they had traditionally had before. And in spite of rents going up, even today with the FAIR Act having passed, and rents will increase more as a result of that. We expect New York to continue to dominate the real estate market in terms of popularity, in terms of the go-to destination.
New York remains a hotbed of everything. And I think, both of you have touched on it a little bit. I mean, there's everything, the financial capital of the world, the social capital of the world, Broadway. I mean, some of the best restaurants, will be found here in New York City. I mean, across the board, New York is a happening place. But, there are places like Chicago, like Los Angeles, like, Miami that people were running to for the longest time. And I see that's kind of, turning around. And it's interesting because initially I think people run away from New York because the prices are too high, but always end up running back to New York because of what you all said. There's no place like it.
We saw that during COVID. I mean,
absolutely.
2020, for 6 months, we were all freaking out. And then look at what happened with the market in 2021. I had open houses, I kid you not, with 50 people in line.
Oh, I know.
People begging me to rent an apartment. By the third applicant.
And pricing going
up. That was
up.
June, July of 2021?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I recall that.
Started in about June, right to the end of the year. 21 was bonanza.
But what happened prior to that? What I saw, what I heard, and the people that I met, you went down to the West Village. The average age dropped by 10 years during COVID. Why? Because those transplants from other cities, from other places said, hey, I can finally afford to live in the village. And so you saw this huge influx of folks moving to New York City for the first time. Again, a testament to its
Well,
popularity.
and they left New York City because people were working from home because you were not allowed to go into the office. So young folk who were renting apartments for the first time in their life said, "Hey, I'm going to go home to mom and dad for a while because I'm going to save money." So they lived home for a year, maybe a little more than a year, and then when the mandate said, "Okay, now everybody can go back to work," they're like, "Okay, enough with mom and dad, enough with living in the basement or whatever. I'm going back to New York," and got another apartment again, and here we are since then. But 21 was a bonanza year. Talk about the generational shift, though, in renter expectations in the multifamily strategies in New York City. What are you seeing there? Because there have been shifts, and we alluded to it, post-COVID, before COVID, et cetera.
Well, expectations, demands are constantly evolving. We talked about the washer dryer popularity. When I was working in real estate, 15 years ago, it wasn't so important.
Did we meet 15 years ago? Is that how long it's been?
It's probably been longer than 15 years.
Up in Harlem on the street one day, I was showing something, he was showing something. I always think about that whenever I think about Ryan, and I'm like, wow, and he's here again.
Well, there was two suits running around in the same neighborhood.
Exactly.
The odds that we were playing in the same space were pretty narrow, and it turns out we had a lot of overlap.
You can pick out a real estate agent a mile away, right? That's very true.
Especially up there back then, too.
Exactly.
But it turns out we had a lot of overlap. So expectations changing. I think that it's not just about the amenities that are evolving, because obviously those will change and expectations will increase. But what we're seeing now is someone being able to open up their phone and order a car. And it might even, we talked about earlier, curbed.
Yeah.
Maybe it's connected with the taxi service now. And so you're getting a yellow cab when you've been, pulling it from Uber. Instacart. Amazon, we expect that package to arrive the next business day. Where has real estate kept up with that trend? Where are we in the context of those services and those expectations?
Soon
and
you'll
quite
be
frankly,
able to-
I think we're still very far behind.
Maybe soon you'll be able to order a broker to your door.
Well, listen,
Vince, business idea.
don't say that too loud, because people are already talking about that. But you're right about ordering everything. Although I got stumped the other day, not even on Amazon. I ordered a pair of shoes, which I never do. But I said, all right, break your rule, do whatever. I ordered the shoes, and then I looked to see when they were going to be delivered, and it said July 8th. Now, this was like a week ago, and I'm thinking, July 8th?
That doesn't
So I
sound
did
about right. But hey,
I did a little investigating, and I realized that the manufacturer is in China, and it was shipping from China, and I immediately got all ticked off and said, I'm going to cancel this. I'm not waiting till July 8th for these shoes, and I don't want anything from China.
What was that, 7 business days?
we're so spoiled.
No, overnight.
Oh, it was overnight.
You get it the next day.
Yeah.
Amazon, usually maybe 2 days.
How long were they quoting you? It was going to take a week to get there?
I think I didn't pay attention, but I think they said that delivery was going to be, and I'm like, whatever, I like the shoes.
Yeah.
And then when I looked to see the confirmation, and when it was shipping, I said, July 8th? Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're
Got it.
canceled.
I'm going to hate the shoes the minute they arrive at my house, trust me.
That's a fine example. In a parallel way, renters' expectations are evolving in a very similar way. We're expecting immediate results.
100%, which is why it's so important that, when a renter inquires, they want to get an answer within 2-3 hours, because most renters are going out of their way and taking time off of their schedules to find an apartment. It's essentially a full-time job. So I have found that the AI leasing assistants, when you inquire through a big management company or a leasing company, they have these AI assistants that respond to your inquiries right away.
Yeah. Well, those AI assistants in anything has been really helpful. But what are the risks of continuing to use outdated systems these days? Because as you just said, Joseph, everybody wants immediate answers, immediate attention.
Yes.
I'm asking a broker, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but, I want an immediate answer. So what are the risks for us as real estate agents using outdated systems, not yet AI-driven, in getting back to or responding to our clients timely? Because, again, they want an answer yesterday. Even on the buy side, by the way. But on the rental side, it's even more immediate. What's that about?
We were talking about a mutual friend of ours, Matt, earlier.
Yeah.
And we were on holiday together in Costa Rica not long ago. And what I was amazed by was just how often he was picking up the phone to field those inquiries at all hours.
Yeah.
And some of it was redundant. Some of it could have been, some of it was necessary hand-holding, broker to client.
Yeah.
And you have to be there to hold their hand. But there was a lot of redundant information and inquiries that were coming in that could have been streamlined theoretically. Stuff that they might even have access to themselves.
Yeah.
But, that's where a broker comes in. That's where it's important. But one of the themes that I'm hearing about from owners and operators is that a lot of them have said this to me. I've heard this in a few different places across the country, which is we're afraid if we don't adopt, we're going to be left behind. That's the theme I'm hearing, at least. So even
when you say adopt, explain what you mean by adopt.
Adopting automation or sticking your head into what the technologies, tools, and resources are creating these days. Because I talked to a brother of mine in Boston who has a pretty decent size portfolio that they own and manage. And they don't go to these tech conferences. They don't go to the real estate trade shows often. And, he's talking to me pretty regularly about what I'm doing, what I'm seeing in the market. And he told his team, hey, we have to start subscribing to these things or attending these conferences and, stepping foot into this world because we're going to be left behind if not. And they're still operating the same way they have for 30 years,
But what challenges are we facing trying to integrate the way we always did things with now these new AI tools or just digital anything? I mean, what challenges do we face? You're out there currently working with, renters. So you say they want immediate answers. So what challenges are you facing when we don't have AI-driven tools? And when we come back from break, Ryan's going to explain to us what his company is all about. But what are the challenges that we face right now? Because even I don't do a lot of rentals, but even on the sales side, there are many challenges out there, many.
I mean, it's very hard to tackle on everyday tasks while you're out showing. You can't do it all as a broker. And I think that the biggest challenge is how do we implement technology so that we can tackle on everyday tasks without taking away from the core essence of what we do? This is a people's business at the end of the day. So I think that if we can implement AI so that we can tackle on those everyday tasks and allow us to focus on the core essence of our business, I think that's the key part of
and I agree with that 100%, but I think we need to first define what that core aspect of our business is for all of us, because we are always involved in so much, and when we're people interfacing, it adds another level of complexity. All right, we're going to take a break. There is so much more to talk about with Ryan and Joseph. Talking New York Real Estate is just getting underway on this very busy Tuesday morning. Don't go anywhere. We are coming right back.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, so we are back with Ryan and Joseph, and we're talking about automation, artificial intelligence, and better ways of servicing our rental clients out there. Ryan, what are the most important or impactful AI-driven tools that are currently trying to reshape our industry, our leasing experience in New York City real estate?
First of all, I just want to track back a little bit and just emphasize that, when you're talking about automation, there is this stigma, it seems to often come out, especially from the real estate community that I've been hearing, which is, are we going to lose that personal touch? But this is, again, it's automation. So all we're doing is connecting people with the end user, the same way that Uber is connecting renters with drivers. There is a person on the other side of that transaction. So similarly, if AI is able to, or automation is able to connect renters with apartments, there still needs to be another individual on the other side of that transaction, a real estate agent, maybe an in-house agent that works on behalf of the owner or the operator. However it is, someone's got to hold the keys. Someone has to process the applications. There is still a lot on the other side for personal engagement and that quote-unquote handshake.
But what's the line between automation that enhances leasing versus the technology that alienates prospects? I mean, we know that automation sometimes can be scary to people, right? We don't understand it. And so right away we fear and we kind of take a step back. But it's helping us.
I mean, the other day I had Wi-Fi issues. So I go online, I'm chatting with AI support, and then the AI assistant wasn't able to assist me with the questions that I had. And then at some point, I just got so stressed. I was just like, forget about this. I'm just going to have to use my cellular data because I wasn't able to reach somebody. So I think the important and the key part here is that if we do implement AI into our everyday practices, we need to make sure that there's still a person and a human experience at the very end of that.
Yeah, well, at the end of the show, with my final close, we're going to talk my opinion on what AI is all about. But I agree with that. But can automation help create more personalized renter experience, or does it make it feel more transactional? I mean, because people say to me sometimes that you keep mentioning the fact, Joseph, that we want to keep it personal. This is what we do. You know, our interactions and our relationship with our clients and our customers. But does automating it to the point where it's too much and it becomes really transactional feeling, or can we keep that personal in it?
Well, first of all, it is a transaction. However way you paint it, it's a transaction.
But how does the renter feel about that?
Correct. But the same way, again, use that example of Uber. You know, it's a convenience. Not everyone is going to use Uber. You dropped Uber. You fired them a few years ago, right?
I certainly did.
Okay, great. So
very happily did.
We are not going to expect to capture the entire market, but it's 2025. Okay,
right.
That means the youngest renters right now have grown up with cell phones in their pockets and have been totally plugged into these technologies and these tools for more or less. So you're going to see a rapid increase in those expectations for those same streamlined conveniences. So will everyone utilize it? No. Will there be tasks that the AI won't be able to perform on?
100%.
Yeah, sure. But it's evolving quite rapidly right now. So for example, there's a parallel tool where we have, which is maintenance renewal requests. So if you wanted to call in and put a maintenance request, say it's a clogged sink, that's pretty easy for the AI to handle, tag that, it's not an emergency. Now, in an emergency case where we need immediate response time, it will escalate that to the person that's on call that needs to come out and actually fix that active leak, or maybe there's something more detrimental that requires some immediate attention. So AI is not a robot. It's not going to come fix the sink. It's going to streamline the process and escalate it as necessary. And will there be frustrations along the way? Sure. But every time we call a call center, there's always some type of frustration trying to dial in and get patched into the right person. So oftentimes, yeah. So it's not perfect, but
I'm kidding. I agree with you. And by the way, don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm anti-AI. I happen to think AI is incredible. I use it for the show all the time. One of the things that does amaze me, though, with AI is, we've all gotten so Google sensitive, right? Google, or Siri, give me an answer to this, or Siri, give me an answer to that. Oftentimes lately, I'd say in the last several months, what pops up when Google doesn't have an answer? Would you like me to check with Chat GPT? I'm like,
I love it.
No, I do too. But I'm like, okay, so AI is just a much better version of what Google searching was ever about.
Yeah, search results on Google are down. People are utilizing the Chat GPT instead.
But I will always start with Siri,
they're using them for therapy even.
That.
Some people are using AI for therapy now. Have you heard of that?
I have.
Some people are actually dating AI. It's a thing.
I've heard about this as well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that. Really?
So this is just the beginning,
This is just the beginning of the new era. Maybe we will turn into Homo technos.
I'm not dating any digital. I need human
Homo
interaction.
sapiens.
No. Not working for me. Not working anyway, but it's not working for me.
Not yet.
But you know how ChatGPT or AI has helped me a lot is, first of all,
I love it. Believe me, I use it all the time.
I'm no longer having to start writing a listing description like "Welcome to this home," blah blah blah. I just make AI like
word package letters.
You know what I did?
But is that less personalized? You guys for this example right here. That is not less personalized. It's just streamlining the process of getting that description.
Enhancing the process, streamlining the process. I agree.
It just makes us more efficient. The other day, I just didn't have time to read through an offering plan. It was 40 pages. Yeah. I submitted it into AI. I uploaded the document, and it gave me a summary breakdown. It took me 5 minutes to go through this offering plan.
And I've done the same thing. The only concern I have, and maybe that's the older statesman in me that says, okay, we're limiting people's learning experiences. We're making it too easy for people to not read, to not learn, to not digest. Colleges are getting whacked with students writing papers using AI. I mean, it's becoming
But will that benefit society? Will that free up
I don't-
bandwidth for us to pursue more
But how
artistic?
smart or not are you becoming? Because it's too easy to use a machine.
I mean, but that's a whole different conversation.
Well,
I
Yeah,
guess
this is a little bit more philosophical, isn't it?
yeah,
but-
I guess that's a whole different conversation, because if AI is taking time away from, I guess, let me rephrase this. What we're trying to get at is that AI is helping us agents become more efficient. Because we're not sitting down for an hour coming up with a description. I didn't go to school for creative writing. I'm sorry, like that's not my forte. I am good with people. When I'm doing this with people, with my clients,
I agree.
this is what I'm really good
I
at.
agree.
And AI facilitates that for me. Now,
I
whether
totally
it's
agree.
making me lazier, I mean, maybe just a little bit. But if you know what, if I get those 30 minutes back at night to read my book or to watch my shows, I have a better life. I have a better lifestyle. So
Okay, I can agree with that. Ryan, let's talk a little bit about apartmentlist.com, okay? How is it being utilized? Tell us a little bit about the company and what the benefits are and how AI-driven it is.
So Apartment List is or was like a traditional ILS in some ways,
Correct.
internet listing service like your apartments.coms and so forth. And over the years, we've evolved into something else. We bought an AI company a number of years ago that we integrated into our platform. And so instead of it being a traditional place or marketplace, it's both a smart platform with AI and automation meeting this marketplace for owners and operators to list their rentals, their multifamily rentals, not sales or condos or co-ops. Right. And also for renters to get connected with those apartments, much like the way Uber connects renters with drivers. We're asking these renters to take a quiz, and we use that quiz to create these data points to nurture and curate the right leads for that renter. And as they engage the app, as they engage those listings, they swipe on it just the way they would on a dating app. So it's not a data dump. It's truly they're looking at each individual listing. And instead of it, you know, if you're looking at you want a gym or a pool, instead of putting that criterion and then all the non-gym or non-pools fall off, there's a folder that they get all put into saying, well, if you want to become flex on the gym or flex on the pool, here are these listings to go through. So
I did see that, by the way, because I signed up yesterday, and I loved that it asked me at the very end, like, what's most important to you? Is it the commute to school, or is it the commute to work? Is it the washer, dryer, and unit? And I love that it did show me that, because sometimes when you're working on a search and you filter out, like, let's say the doorman buildings, or you filter out the washer, dryers, and unit, you do risk missing out on that great apartment that just didn't have the washer, dryer, and unit. And we see this with clients. Some people start with a very strong list of things that they want out of an apartment, and as they start seeing things, they become more flexible. And I did love that about Apartment List.
It's a different renter journey than typically what most folks might utilize with those other vendors, maybe apartments.com, you know. But to that end, it's also appealing from an owner and operator's perspective, because their listings are still being marketed. And instead of just entirely falling off, should they not have that pool or gym that renter wants, it still gives them a decent amount of exposure. But
so would you say curated rental matches are more effective than traditional listing aggregators?
Again,
or not?
Again, I think it's a different...
I mean, I think they are, or should be.
I think it's a different experience. So what we found is our consumers, our renters that utilize our platform are anywhere from 20 to 45. So it's a younger cohort. They're maybe a bit more tech savvy or tech inclined, because they're going through this renter quiz, this renter journey, which, you know, to be fair, we do have renters fall off because they don't want to do that. They want to plug in the way maybe a traditional ILS might have. But we don't want those folks anyway, because we want a different set of renters. We don't want the window shoppers, so to speak. And I think that by doing this, it removes more of the window shoppers and actually puts more high intent renters in the mix on our platform. So that's what we find.
What does a one-stop shop for leasing, tech, marketing, plus AI, plus communications mean for smaller operators or even for landlords?
So Apartment List, again, has a smart platform that leverages AI and automation to nurture these leads. So for example, say someone is searching on the platform and they swipe that they like this particular listing. Instead of you getting plugged in as an agent directly to this renter, the AI is going to nurture this lead and evaluate how much intent they really have. Are they moving in the next 90 days? Are they moving in the next 2 weeks? Do they want an application? Are they interested in scheduling a tour? Once we get past those barriers, then it would pass off to an agent. So all that follow-up, all of that chasing, all of that redundant, all those redundant tasks that you might even find frustrating as an agent, it's going to automate that for them. And then what you're going to see on the other end that actually does hit your desk are the folks that have requested an application or perhaps already filled it out, or they've already put a calendar on the a tour on the books for you to actually engage. And that will be your first. And then you'll be able to see the whole AI conversation previous, depending on how much engagement there was or what they asked or what the AI was able to answer. And so then you can evaluate and say, look, this is where this renter stands. I have a tour in the books, or I have a pending application as a result of this. And so we do pass it off. There is an end user.
And as an agent, how do I syndicate my listings? Do I have to actually input them myself, or do they syndicate from the RLS or from any of the other databases?
So we typically work with owners and operators to add their portfolios. So for example, we traditionally work with just strictly multifamily buildings. So your condos or co-ops, leases that wouldn't that wouldn't be suited for the platform.
So I wouldn't be able to as a broker.
As a broker, if you had an exclusive relationship with the owner of that particular multifamily building, you could definitely have these listings put on the platform easily. It's pay per lease. So if we actually produce a lead that ends up moving in, the AI will be able to see the move-in card and the timestamp to determine that we were the first, attributed to that lease. Then we would charge a very modest fee when you compare it to sort of a real estate agent's fee. So it'd be great for agents too, because it's a modest price that could benefit the broker and the owner of the operator at the same time.
So leasing smarter, not harder, based on technology, based on AI, you would agree is where we're going, where we are, and where we will continue to go, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think that we're there yet. I think that we have a long ways to go, especially here in New York City. I think that for generations, people have been operating the same way, and there are going to be a lot of folks that hold out to the last, and I'm seeing that. But you look at your Greystars, Avalon Bay, there's a lot of big names that are already leveraging these tools, and it's just going to have a trickle-down effect. I mean, it already is in the conversation. So,
well, and as Joseph said before, on the sales side, helping write listing descriptions. I mentioned, board package, personal letters and professional letters. I mean, it's helping. Yeah, it's a trickle-down effect. Yes, it's just beginning, but I really don't see an end to it. I do see that it's going to continue somewhere down the road. Joseph, you work on a team. So from a team morale perspective, how are these tools helping? I mean, you're getting the job done faster, not faster? And how is it helping, find more work as a team?
I work with the Barnett Bittencourt team, which, by the way, they're fantastic. Shout out to Jared Barnett and Augusto Bittencourt. They're amazing. They've shown me the ropes of the business. So shout out to you guys.
At Compass, by the way.
At Compass, that's right. Well, we have a virtual assistant. So it's not quite AI, and we absolutely adore and love her.
Explain that to the audience, please.
So a virtual assistant is an assistant that works remotely. She works out of the Philippines, and she works during our business hours. I believe she works 9 to 6, which is 9 to 6 in the Philippines.
When I was in real estate, we had the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's fantastic. She's very smart. She's extremely efficient, and she helps us with those inquiries. She helps us with those board packages. She helps us with setting up DocuSign, with sending invoices. So it really allows us as a team to focus on the people's business, to focus on the client, because we have somebody that's taking care of all of the operations, essentially. Not quite AI, but
it's a parallel. I mean, you're outsourcing you're automating and outsourcing these tasks.
I mean, that kind of assistance has been around for a long time, and they have been used by many, many, many agents through the years that I'm aware of very successfully.
100%.
And they're very helpful, and they work, as you say, on your schedule. When we're talking about, all this new technology, are we heading toward a time when renters are expecting every transaction now, or every inquiry now, or every interaction with a broker to be easier, faster, more successful because we are now AI based or digitally based? Do the renter out there, and I guess I can say the buyer too, are they really expecting better and faster? You mentioned it before.
Yes.
People to people want stuff and they want it immediately. Are they expecting better now?
I have an example.
And as you said, Ryan, we're not there yet. We're
not.
on our way and we're getting there. But you know how the expectation of people is.
At 8 a.m. this morning, I rang a bold-faced name shop here in New York City who's working on a brand new, big, beautiful development. And I'm familiar with this project. It's just launched. It's the first phase. There's going to be over 1,500 units in this building. And I called to check in to see, is someone going to pick up at the leasing office? And it was routed from the leasing office, which of course was not open, to the main office. And actually somebody picked up. And they had me on the phone for almost 10 minutes when all I wanted to know was, is there an open house at the property today? Will there be an open leasing office? And she spent almost 10 minutes with me on hold trying to find the phone number and then basically gave me the same phone number that I had initially called. Now, you tell me where AI could help automate and not only save them time, but save myself time. Because if I had if they had been plugged into our services, for example.
I'm impressed with 8 a.m. in the morning.
I know.
Making a phone call.
Well, I couldn't believe somebody picked up. But I think it's their loss as well, because an AI agent could have easily picked up, not only told them the hours that they were going to be open or even booked a tour for them, but it would have been a little bit more helpful than what I was getting from the uncaffeinated poor front desk worker that received my call this morning.
I hear you. And again, we're coming right back. Got to take a quick break. We're going to get into the FAIR Act and what changed law-wise as of June 11th, just a couple of weeks ago. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network. We will be right back after these messages.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place. The More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting getmorenetwork.com.
Okay, so we are back. Let's talk about the FAIR Act. It's a very controversial law that just went into place here in New York City, directed by and promoted by and written by the New York City Council, local council here in New York. It's very controversial, as I said. It basically says now that the only person who gets paid a commission, only agent who gets paid a commission is the listing agent, and that is being paid by the landlord or the owner of a condo will pay the listing agent. The tenant agent now can only get paid if the tenant agrees to pay them. So my concern there is whenever you tell somebody they don't have to pay, they're probably not going to pay. So we're going to see how this all plays out, and we're going to see the real story as it plays out over the next couple of months and year. But I'm not too optimistic about it. But let me ask, a couple of questions here. So Joseph, how is this going to change the way we think about our rental practice, our rental businesses, whether we work for the landlord, whether we work for the tenant, and how appreciative are landlords going to be with needing to now pay when they didn't have to pay anything before? What are the ramifications?
Well, I mostly work on the tenant side. I've been repping tenants since I started this business. And the way that I sell my businesses and my services is that it's a luxury service. You could do this on your own, but you could also just pay me to do it for you. People are busy. They don't have the time to dedicate 40 hours a week to look at all of the brand new listings and determine if it works for them or not. So I always tell my clients, this is a luxury service, and that also means that this is my fee. So what it means is that if you're going to hire me, you're going to pay me. And I think what the Fair Act is trying to do is overall simplify the process. Whoever hires the broker pays the broker. In the past, when I took on a client or a tenant hired me, I always had to have the conversation with them that there are some instances where we would find a listing where the broker was also charging a fee, and therefore we would have had to co-broke that fee. Now, from their perspective, they thought that it was a little bit unfair that they had to pay the listing broker whom they hadn't hired, because from their perspective, they just opened the door to the apartment, right? Now, whether that's true or not, I think there is maybe a disconnect between everyday New Yorkers and maybe traditional methods of doing business in the real estate world. I mean, when the whole NAR lawsuit happened, right, we all kind of advocated for sellers to continue to pay the buyer's agent commission. I think it's a little bit hypocritical that on the tenant side, we tell our tenants, hey, by the way, you should pay the commission. Why is that?
Well, I think we got away with it here in New York for so long. And then finally, with a lot of transparency and maybe a little help of some politicians in TikTok, they said, we're not paying this fee anymore. This is an operating cost. Let the landlord or the owner operator, let them eat that cost, because it's their apartment. They're trying to maintain it. They're trying to market it.
Yeah.
It should be their operating expense, which is a fair argument, but it disrupts what we've been doing for so long here.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, I suspect that rents are going to increase substantially as a result. I know that they're already increasing. And it's unfortunate because while well-intended, the Fair Act will actually hurt the very renters that they are meant to protect.
Look, rents have gone up in price. I mean, most brokers will tell you 15 or 20%. I'm on the ground every single day. They have gone up in price maybe 5 to 10%, but we also have to look at days on market. A lot of these apartments that are now currently overpriced because of the Fair Act, they're sitting on the market. New Yorkers are smart. They're efficient. They're very smart. They know what they're buying, and they're willing to pay for it if it's worth it for them. If something is overpriced, they're not going to pay for it.
We touched on a little bit of it, but what is going to be the overall impact? I mean, I can see both sides, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of this at all because, as I said before, once someone is told they don't have to pay a fee, and by the way, I'm in this business 23 years. If I do rentals, I do it more on the listing side because I sell a lot of condos. And so my condo owner will say, hey, I don't want to sell, but I'll rent. And we've always done the 15% or the 1 month, whatever. They never had to pay a fee. They never had to pay my fee. Now you go back and you say to them, okay, you have to pay a fee. And the tenant says, I don't have to pay anybody anything. Wow, this is wonderful. I see there's a lot of confusion about to happen.
That's not true. I have closed 5 rental deals this month, and all of those tenants have paid my fee because they hired me as their tenant's agent. Because I have had the conversation with them.
They signed an agreement with you.
They signed an agreement with me. They are hiring me, and they know that this is a luxury service. They know that they could do it on their own, but they choose to pay me because they're paying for the expertise.
This is why you're a superstar, Joseph, and I applaud you for that, and continue, because we can get folks to pay. But what we need to do, and as I've said before, even when it came to the NAR settlement, we have to learn how to be better communicators, better negotiators, better explaining who we are, what we do, what our services are that we provide. Because look, I just did a very high-end rental from somebody out of town, in town, just before the law changed. So we're getting, 15% split 50-50. I'm representing the tenant. And they did not understand what the New York City rental process is all about.
Yeah.
On some levels, it could be worse than a sale, okay? You still have to do a board package. You still have to have all the financials and the tax returns and the whatever else. It was a nightmare. So I can only imagine, and he said to me at the end of it, boy, your fee was well worth being paid. And I sat back and said, whoa, okay.
That's what it comes down to.
And that's what it comes down to.
I think it gives us the opportunity to explain what we do and talk about the value that we bring to the table. And if you can't justify what your fee is, then you're in the wrong business.
Correct.
So
100%. That's 100% correct.
With that said, could we speculate that we can expect to see an increase in more professional real estate agents and less of those folks running around flipping rentals all summer the way we might have in the past?
Well,
I think that there's going to be few licensed agents out there the way that there has been maybe too many in the past. Maybe this is going to push some of them out of the market.
I think, unfortunately, it is going to hurt listing agents 100%. And it's going to hurt a lot of landlords. And I've already seen an increase on listings posted by owners, which, by the way, they're doing a terrible job. I inquired about a listing. I did not hear from anybody until 3 days later when my client had already left town. And I'm like, this was a perfect apartment for them, but I never reached a broker. It was listed by the owner of the unit.
Well, that's not good either. But I have issues with, even on the sales side, for some reason, these days about a year and probably more, when I either call to make an appointment, when I email a broker to make an appointment, I get no response. No response. And I sit there and I think,
It's terrible.
I want to show your apartment. I need to show my client your apartment.
I want to make you money.
This is where we need AI.
And then I come back and say, okay, second request, and I could be obnoxious. Third request, and I still don't get an agent to respond to me. I'm like, what is this about?
I hate begging people to pay them. I hate that feeling.
No, but I want to show your apartment.
And I want to make business.
Right.
I want to do a deal and I want to get it done. And I hate that.
But when you can't get an appointment, sometimes the buyer and or renter says, screw you, I'll go directly to that person myself. And I'm sure they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you don't need that client in the first place.
Well, I understand that, but listen, we can't control every client, right?
No.
I'm just saying these are the things that can happen, and I've seen them happen. How then do we market in the new way of rental business? How do we market our listings?
Well, take that example that pain point that you just shared. Apply that. That was a sale, or in that case, but with respect to a rental, imagine being able to call and the AI picks up and says, sure, we have availability. It's integrated with the property management software so it can see the calendar. And then the very next day it says, we have appointments available at 11 a.m., 12 p.m., or 1 p.m.
Right.
Great, it's on the books and it's in the calendar. And then you receive a phone call from the agent saying, you know what? I got this thing on my calendar, but I have to cancel it because there's an application pending, and here's the update, and this is why they probably didn't get back to you to begin with.
If you don't, if it's already sold, if it's already in contract, just send me an email saying it's gone. I went to make an appointment for my haircut the other day. I went on the site. I saw what times were available. I picked one with the guy I like who cuts my hair. I went, done, and left.
And maybe
it should be that easy.
Maybe on the other side, there's a person who butts in and says, you know what, I saw you booked this, but we can't honor this appointment because of X, Y, and Z. But then you still have your response.
Correct.
And there's not an unknown, or maybe my client's going to go to this person directly. There is transparency. I think that's what the market is looking for.
Transparency. That's what the market is looking for, and that's what new shoppers want. It's all about being authentic in every single way. It's about being authentic and it's about being transparent. And people are willing to pay your fee as long as you come forward with those two attributes.
The FAIR Act is currently being legally challenged for brokerage firms, landlords, Real Estate Board of New York. Where do we think that's going to go?
The judge dismissed some of those cases.
Some of them, yes.
Yeah. So I think.
But we're pushing back again, technically.
I understand, but that has precedence because it's been challenged and it hasn't succeeded thus far. And for all intent and purpose, the FAIR Act has been implemented. So if you look up the stories in the New York Post, for example, they're raving about, they love this gossip and juice it up and say, look at these communications between the brokers and the renters, and they're trying to hide the fee, and it turns into a bit of a scandal. So we're all adapting and adjusting, and in the middle of the busy season, no less. So I wish, the politicians had the mind to give us more time to adapt, but here we are. And the reality is, everybody knows about it. And so there's no way you're going to be able to hide this. So how do we adapt? How do we reconcile this?
And what happens if a landlord says, or a condo owner says, I'm not paying a fee?
Well, they can't list their apartment with a broker. They would have to list it themselves.
Right.
Unless they want to incur a $2,000 fee for each offense,
Exactly. So they can't do that. whoever hires the broker has to pay the broker. If that landlord or that owner of that condo or co-op wants to hire a broker, they're going to have to pay their fee. That's what the Fair Act says. It simplifies it.
Correct. It is defining who is responsible for paying the fee. I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that, like everything else, I think the problem we've had this year is simple. We've had two major changes to the way we do sales and now the way we do rentals, all in a 6-month window.
Big changes.
Big changes. I mean, monster changes. And I think the landscape out there, both real estate agents, real estate firms that we work for, buyers, sellers, landlords, renters, everybody's kind of scratching their head saying, what on earth is going on here? And as I always say, even with sellers now, trying to get them to understand our value and saying, look, I'm going to represent your sale, but there's going to be another agent coming in with a very qualified buyer who's going to want to buy your apartment, and you need to pay them. And when a seller says, no, I don't want to do that, then the buyer agent has to go out and say to their buyer, there is an apartment here that I think is perfect for you. Let's go see it. But if you want to buy it, you have to sign an agreement and you have to pay me the commission out of your pocket because the seller isn't going to pay. I'm sorry, but you know what? That ain't going to work. All right? It's just not going to work.
It's not going to work. But
if you're a first-time buyer and you're buying a $900,000 or $1 million apartment and you have to pay a $20,000 or $25,000 commission, first-time buyer at the closing table, what are you going to hear? I don't have that kind of money. That's not going to happen.
Trust me, I know I work mostly with first-time home buyers, and in the same way that I represent tenants. And they're already paying 4 to 5% in closing costs off the purchase price.
Correct.
They cannot afford to pay my 3%. That's why I have the same sentiment with the Fair Act.
But back to your question, though, how do we market how do we market these homes, whether they be for sale or for rentals? And the truth is that over generations, your brokerage firm has created a marketing platform. You have reach, you have resources, you have intel, insights that the market outside of here doesn't really know. So we need your marketing platform in the same way Apartment List is a marketing platform. It connects renters with apartments, and the real estate brokerage firms are connecting agents with renters and helping to market homes. So at the end of the day, with this, the goal is to market these homes, but how do we reconcile that in the context of payments, the fee structure?
Well, you can't put any commission information on our listing systems anymore, whether it's rental or sale. So my opinion is we have to take one more step in the process that we already have many processes and call or email an agent and ask, what's the commission? And again, sometimes you get a response, sometimes you don't. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult to understand how we're going to get paid, let alone how then can I show this apartment, or may I please show this apartment,
Well, maybe it's up to the brokerage firms to also address that as well. Like, how do we, they're independent contractors.
Yeah, we're trying.
How do they, with their leadership and with their insights, how do we reconcile that? Maybe the fee structure needs to change. Like if you go to London, I think the average commission structure is at 2 points, and like over here we were playing with 6 for a long time.
Well, that's what's going on, and that's the problem here.
So maybe they're trying to squeeze the commission a little bit. Maybe that will succeed. But I think no matter what, there's still a demand for this service, for this marketing effort, for this brokerage firm to connect renters, home buyers with these residences. In the same way, my company is trying to, in a smaller way, serve almost like in a parallel way. It's pay by performance. So if we send a lead that turns into a move-in, then we charge the owner and operator a small fee. I think it's $549 here in New York City, for example, which is far less than a $4,000 or $5,000 fee. Now, are we gonna
don't get rid of me,
hold
please.
the keys and help them process the application? No.
Yeah.
But we are going to match them with these homes and plug them in. I think on the other side of that, the benefit to the agent will be I won't have had to run around too hard, following up and pursuing this renter. I know exactly who the high intent folks are, and that's what ends up hitting your desk.
And the reason I remain optimistic on both sides, the Fair Act side and the NAR side, buyer and seller side, renter side, is because of the complexity of New York City as we talked about. There is no place like New York. real estate isn't transacted anywhere in the world like it is here in New York, meaning it's very complicated. And so, as you said, Joseph, before, if you trust my professionalism and my dedication to get the job done for you, that's where my value is. And that's why a payment to me is, almost necessary. And when we say it just
It's
because
how we make our living.
but that's how we make our living. But the smart client out there realizes that, but also realizes I'm too busy. I don't have the time to do this on my own. I can't get all this paperwork done in a timely basis. I need somebody kind of pushing me behind the scenes to make it happen. That's why I feel like there's going to be a little bumpiness in the road. It's going to go on for a couple of months, absolutely like everything else. But I do honestly feel we'll get through this and we'll work through it and we'll figure out better ways to communicate, to negotiate, and to protect what we've spent years in this town cultivating and building. We've got a few minutes left. Let me ask you, Joseph, the current state of the market. I like to, at the end of most of the programs here, from your perspective, where are we? What are you seeing? How do you predict the rest of the year, the next 6 months?
In terms of the rental market?
No, and just in general, rental and sales.
Well, first of all, when it comes to the rental market, we are seeing an increase in overall rents. That's 100% true. As I said before earlier in the pod, is that a lot of these apartments are sitting longer on the market, right? So that's another statistic that we should be looking into. New Yorkers are smart. New Yorkers know what they're paying for. They won't pay for something that they don't see the value in.
Right.
In terms of the overall market, I feel like the pendulum is swinging. It keeps on swinging. Every month is so different. Right now, luckily, I have a good amount of buyers in contract. I have a good amount of renters in contract. I have 3 clients slotted in for next month that have already scheduled me and agreed to pay my fee. In terms of my business, it's looking optimistic. But I'm also very new to this. I'm only 4 years into the business. So for me, all of these changes that have happened in the industry just give me the opportunity to explain my services and to explain what exactly they're hiring when they're hiring me. So
you don't have any legacy behind you that's dragging you down. I 100% agree with that. And I think the younger folk in the business are going to probably excel faster in these new times because you don't have all that baggage.
Exactly.
And you don't have to, call on, well, we used to do this way and it used to be that way. And what about this? And how come we're doing that?
I started during COVID. And since then, every single year, there's been some type of change in legislation when it comes to our broker community. And I feel like every single year, I feel like we've been kind of under attack. And then
it's been an enormous disruption. I've been in the offices as in the heat of these things. And
you were an agent for a long time, so
and
you
I was
get
an
the
agent.
background.
I can relate.
But that's all I'm used to. So for me, this is just another month, another year.
Business day to day for you.
Yes.
Well, look,
another controversy. Let's just tackle it. And whether the Fair Act is fair or not, that's not up to me to decide, but it's up to me to adapt. And I've done
well said. It's not for me to decide either, but I need to figure out how to adapt it. And I'm going to, because it is way of business.
The issue was not the Fair Act. The issue was we'd spent the last 20 to 30 years building Class A type product, high-end condominiums that are trading to, often foreign nationals to, park money and so forth. We haven't really created that housing product or that housing stock that would meet the demands of today's renters, which are a lot more modest. But, the pro formas don't play out when you're creating these affordable homes. So what we've built is luxury, and we're paying for it now. And this type of legislation is kind of backwards and short-sighted, in my opinion. What we really should be doing is making it easier for developers to build.
That's 100% true. The reality is that we have a housing crisis, right? We need to build more homes faster, and we need to incentivize the right people to do it because we need more homes. That's why we have a housing crisis. That's why they're tackling on this type of legislation to make it cheaper for everyday New Yorkers to rent or buy apartments. But the reality of what's going on is that we have a housing crisis.
All right, guys, we are out of time. That was a great conversation. We're coming back after a short break with my final thoughts. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. Artificial intelligence is no longer a futuristic concept. It's a present-day tool that is reshaping how industries operate and how people live. AI at its core, AI enables machines to mimic human intelligence, learning from data, making decisions, and improving over time. Its applications stretch across fields from healthcare to finance, from creative ads to real estate. What makes AI especially powerful is its ability to process massive amounts of information faster and more accurately than humans, allowing for smarter and faster decisions. But with its rapid rise comes real questions and responsibilities. How do we ensure AI is used ethically? What safeguards are needed to protect privacy and avoid bias? How do we strike a balance between automation and human connection? Ultimately, AI isn't about replacing people. It's about augmenting what we do and enabling us to focus on higher value, more creative, or more compassionate in our work. Used wisely, it is a tool that can help individuals, companies, and entire cities like New York City right here adapt to modern demands and thrive in a rapidly evolving world. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Substack, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. I know there's a mouthful there. Einstein once said, compound interest is an eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I am so grateful, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.